And in Rachel's absence, I'll take the reins with your help. Ask for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Taylor,
Second.
second Walters, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you.
I've got a couple
Yes.
small typos that I'd like to see. One, under director's report, instead of board training day, as was pointed out last meeting, that should be strategic planning.
Okay.
And then under old business discussion, DDA director roles and responsibilities, the memo says goals and responsibilities.
Oh, okay.
So one of those two is inconsistent with the other, and is it supposed to be goals or roles?
Let's make it goals.
I just have a question, it's on here, but I understand, and I apologize, I was in the last meeting, and on page 3 of the minutes, it mentions that some of that came up before, and it was supposed to be tabled till December, so I just didn't know what was gonna be different at this meeting than last meeting, and I thought we were waiting till the end of the year to talk about that.
It was asked to be placed on the agenda again.
Oh, okay.
I think I requested that, didn't I? Just because I hadn't seen it before, and I thought if it was just in the packet, it would be helpful. I think that was my intent, but that was one.
Because I'm thinking she reports every time on goals.
Yeah, I just wanted to see the actual, the list was all, so it didn't
Okay.
need to be gone over. But I think we make it goals and responsibilities, since that's what it says on the sheet.
Okay,
Everybody good with those changes?
Yes.
yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Public comment. How was that? Approval of October 9th meeting minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Taylor.
I do have a number of corrections that I'd like to see. So
There's a motion on the floor, so
I got mine.
if we can get a second, then we'll discuss it.
I'll second.
Thank you.
I have one question. Caitlin sent an email on Monday, said that there was a new draft of the meeting minutes.
That were just format, spelling based.
Okay, because I'm no, I would have felt more comfortable if we would just had a draft and then discuss it here and make the changes, because I don't know what formats were changed and spellings or anything like that. That was my concern.
I have a question just in general. Did the board get the packet last Wednesday, or was Monday the first time you saw the packet?
I got two,
Me too.
and I can't remember the dates I got. I know I got one on Monday, but I don't know any other one.
Yeah, I might have one on Monday, but I couldn't tell you if I got one, right?
I just know I got two.
That might have been an issue with the original one.
Yeah, I don't know, but anyhow, that's just my comment, that they're, yeah, we should amend the minutes.
Okay, Barry?
So I guess I'll start off with a broader comment in that. The reason there were amended minutes is I sent an email on Friday, 19 requested changes. And only those changes that were not related to content were included. So I'm gonna go through the content-related changes at the meeting. But my question as board secretary is, what is my role in the minutes? Because for the previous meetings, the process had been that the recording secretary would create draft minutes, work with me on getting kind of a final draft, and then it would go to the board. This month, that process did not happen, so my changes came in after the draft minutes went out. So I just want to know what the board's thought is on my role as secretary. Because the bylaws say that I'm responsible for them.
For the record, yeah.
So,
And my only concern it's just that we, you know, if we're gonna make changes, if they've already been,
Yep.
I'd rather see it at a meeting, you do it, is all. That would be my preference.
I agree with that.
I was kind of anticipating that we would be having this discussion with my 18 changes, but
Couldn't get it to 20?
Yeah, you could. So I guess why don't we just decide how we want to proceed moving forward at the following meetings?
I would prefer that if there's amendments to the meeting, the minutes, that we do it as following meeting, and then approve them as a board, so then we all know what the issues are.
Okay. Good with that?
In December? Is that what you're asking?
no, I think you're just saying going forward.
Going forward,
Yeah.
yes,
Oh,
going
okay.
forward, that if, you know, if we get the packet and there's something wrong, then we need to bring it up at that meeting. And then as a board, we can discuss the changes and approve.
Again, my question would be is, what is the process before it gets put into a packet?
So if
I think
Kelly
there are two
takes-
halves of that
Yeah.
conversation.
If Kelly's taking the minutes, then maybe they go to you after that? Would that be?
I think that's what you're asking for.
That,
think
I
it's
am asked,
appropriate,
that is
yes.
what I think is appropriate, but I think it's the entire board's decision as to how that should be.
I would agree.
I think essentially Kelly's taking the minutes for you.
Yeah.
So I think that you should take them after that.
And I think it's very useful to have two sets of eyes so
Mhm.
that it's, you know, there's not one person controlling the minutes.
Yeah.
But
Can I ask a question? So then they would go to you and you would note the changes or the corrections that may need to be made, and then it would come here to the board and we would,
that's, I think that's up for discussion, is to,
And again, my only concern is that, you know, if you're not taking notes or, you know, whatever,
I'm using the videotape though as
Oh,
my
okay.
guide.
all right, then that makes me feel better. I didn't know
Yeah.
how that was being done.
And I think if you're noting the changes and not making the changes, that's entirely appropriate. If you just note changes on the draft, it comes to the board, we vote on changes or any other suggested ones. I think that may be appropriate. Anybody else?
I just had another comment, and that is that, and again, I apologize, I wasn't there in October, but Project Rising Tide Report included that board training would happen in late October or early November. I also got confused because of how we titled the January meeting. I thought, is that our board training? So thank you for clarifying that. But in the past, we've always done follow-up. So for example, if we knew there was board training coming up, have those dates been set, and you know, are we included? So we would, if we had an item that required follow-up in the past, we noted it and it's been placed on another agenda.
Okay.
So I'm just thinking that's a good process.
She'll be reporting on that in her committee report today.
Okay, good.
So is it, for minutes, are we all clear?
On the minutes, yeah.
Okay, cool, all right.
So then my recommended or my, and I'm, in reviewing my changes, I kind of narrow it down to those that I consider really to be more important. And so the first one is in section 10, old business, on towards the, I'm not sure if mine turned out the same way yours did, but in the second motion by Thad, there's in the bulleted list, so it's the second bulleted list. The second to the last bullet says, include long-term lease with no cost to the DDA. And in reviewing the video, Thad was actually very clear that he didn't want a lease to be a contingent on that sale. And the wording I would suggest is to include discussion of a possible long-term lease to the DDA, potentially at no cost. I think that better captures, and the reason I say that is the resolution that George Saylor drafted does not follow what these minutes say, because it does not require, so I think that's important, that the minutes reflect the ultimate resolution there. And then the other one that I consider materially important is at the beginning of old business, and there may be some disagreement on this. The first sentence after the heading, discussion included that the executive committee had been contacted by Little River Holdings. I disagree with that because, to my knowledge, as an executive committee member, Little River Holdings never directly contacted the executive committee. The executive committee did ultimately discuss the Little River Holdings request, but the contact came through Caitlin.
I agree with that.
And it just, because I know there's a lot of touchiness about how the executive committee operates, that concerns me how that's worded.
So do you have some suggested wording?
I think my suggestion was discussion included that the executive director had been contacted by Little River Holdings,
That's fine.
so. So those were the two changes that I felt important to accurately reflect this.
Okay. Anybody else have comments, changes?
No, it's just a question.
Go ahead.
Well, we drafted a resolution and it was signed, and is that included in the packet?
Yes.
It is, okay, sorry, I missed that.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor for the October 9 meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Approval of the October financial report.
No, I'm here.
Sorry.
But I have a question because what's included, at least in my packet, maybe I didn't print all the pages, but there's no profit and loss.
That has the same question.
Okay. And so I emailed Connie last night and she did send it to me, but obviously that's inappropriate. I just got it this morning, but we're missing half of the packet. Whatever reason.
Do you want to include it in December's minutes?
I would,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
less than.
Okay. So reviewing downtown dollar, general budget, and disbursements. Any discussion?
To me, they're part of the financial packet, and since it's incomplete,
Okay.
I recommend we just defer
Okay.
the whole financial report.
Okay.
Until December.
I had also, just another item, I had just requested that the DDA terms be included in our monthly packets, just so kind of everybody has contact information, we're aware of terms and that sort of thing. So that's not on the agenda, but it's in here.
Yeah, you might want to correct Teague's address too.
Okay.
Still has it as Cherry Street and all that is his address.
Okay.
And actually, my address is wrong as well.
Okay.
It's 532, not 562.
I noticed that when I was looking for this, it's in 3 different locations, and every document is slightly different, so I don't know which one to refer to.
Yeah, and isn't this on a, well, not like this is not it's not like this on the website.
Right. Anyway, moving on to committee reports. Budget rising tide, exactly.
But, thank you for having me. This will be my last meeting then to the real. As far as kind of going back to last comment, I'll give you some updates of kind of where we're at with the projects and the transition land graduation and all of that. So as far as the board training, you're all aware that we had a little bit of a hiccup back in Raider, and it was, it took some time to figure out how the funding would work, to find for a different consultant to do the board training. That took some, that took longer than I expected it would. So as of last week, I gave the firm everything they needed. The city charter ordinances, really everything they asked me for. So they're looking at to schedule the training sometime in January. They haven't given me any specific dates. I will try my best to try to get it scheduled before I'm gone, because I'm not really sure of, at least that part. It's supposed to be Dan Leonard to be the lead on that, so in case I don't get it scheduled before I leave, Dan Leonard will be the lead contact as it relates to the board training. But hopefully you'll hear from me within the next few weeks to week or two really, to give you the final date. My last day working for the city will be December 20th. I will present to council the night of December 17th, kind of an overall report of working with all the organizations, kind of the improvements across the year, the accomplishments, and then further recommendations that the city should be considering moving forward as we talk about community and economic development. As far as the plans in general, I went over a transition plan that the funding agencies and Rising Tide are asking the communities to have clear to figure out who's going to do what's the path forward, who is in charge of actually doing something with the recommendations. I did something like a plan for the chamber and the city, and I did like a plan for you all as the DDA, kind of compiling all of the recommendations and making it a little bit more realistic considering, you know, Caitlin's timeline, the capacity of the DDA in general. We went over it yesterday. She didn't have any particular observations, and I'll make it prettier and send it her way in case she wants to share it with you. The consultant for branding has been an interesting, you know, communication trail all over. I haven't particularly gotten him to give me anything specific for the DDA. I told Caitlin yesterday, I was like, I don't want to say I give up, but I give up because it's November. And then, so as far as the transition plan, Manistee Forward, which is the group kind of the transition from the steering committee from Rising Tide, will be, you know, handling all of the overall communication and the work plans. We had a meeting yesterday. It was really, really great. It was really good collaboration, discussion with specific task items, with specific, you know, people that are wanting me to, you know, let's get this started and how can I give you a letter of support. So I was very pleased to see everyone's participation. And then I don't know if you have any particular feedback for me other than that it's been a good year. There's still a lot of work to do. One of the other projects that's been really good is the housing. I've been trying to, by myself, do the things that are achievable throughout the year while I'm still here. There are some other things that I am not really sure of what the transition plan is. And yesterday, I Manistee Forward, I brought up with the leaders the need of having a position for housing, a person that could be fully dedicated to, you know, the advocacy, applying for grants, working with the county planning. And I have brought that to the attention of TED and, the Labor and Economic Employment Department, which is one of the funders for Rising Tide and NBC. And they said that if I could get the leaders excited enough, they could explore the option of supporting this position. Yesterday, the reception at Manistee Forward was super positive. People seem to obviously agree with the need of this because I, for one, think it's unfair to add housing stuff to a person that already has a full-time job. So I sent it to MEDC and Leo yesterday. The leaders are supposed to, they asked me to draft a position description. So I'm going to be working on that and sharing it with the group as they try to foster the funding structure of all of that, who's going to collaborate with what. And then, yeah, I think as far as updates, that's it. I want to ask if you guys have any more questions for me before I fully wrap up. No comments?
Thank you for all your hard work, Lisa.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, thank you for saying that. So I also, yeah, it reminded me, so I went through Caitlin too. There is some work, the city has to work towards their RRC recertification. There's a lot of task items that the city is really working out. I'm really working to get the most of them done before I'm leaving. I'm working with Cal Story, but there are some things that are related to the TIF plan and to the downtown plan that have to be updated into the new RRC certification. I gave Caitlin the instructions on how to do it, the website that they're working with, and kind of the expectations they have as far as this item. They gave us next year to complete and do everything they want. I told them that you guys are in the plan of, you know, approving the TIF. They may not be immediate, but that's something that she'll probably have to work with next year at some point. And then, other than that, I think it's been very good. I've had an interesting learning experience in this community. I still have absolutely no clue of what my next step is going to be. I I don't know, I'll tell you in a month if I know. I generally have no idea. But there's still a lot of, like I said, work to do. I said it yesterday to the group, I will say as a council, the communication can still continue to improve across the board with all of you as leaders of your organization. When Leo and MABC asked me, like, what do you see as a roadblock? And I was like, I don't necessarily think there's a roadblock, just the invisible politics that sometimes get people stuck into doing things. And I feel we've made a lot of changes this year. I've seen conversations, I see people in the room that I didn't necessarily see when I started. So just keep it going, man. You guys are headed in a good direction if you could keep it going. So thank you for working with me and seeing me and pulling off with me for a whole year. And thank you.
Thank you, Lizette. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Economic development. Karen is not here. Is anybody else on that board?
Val and I, so,
Okay.
I'll let Val talk.
Oh, we will, okay. Well, we have met and we came up with a list. We actually looked at the recommendations from Joe Bookstrom and those things that the DDA and the chamber intersect on that were assigned. We came up with a list of 3 items and Karen drafted an agreement. And I know that the next step is for us to meet with Stacy and Mark and then bring back a better version. And I did see Stacy just a few days ago, and she said that she'd get back with us on a date that her and Mark were available. That's where we're at.
And this is the result of our vote last month to enter into some sort of negotiations for the, okay. Anything to add to that?
More to follow.
Yes.
Great.
TIF.
My immediate comments, because we're gonna talk about the TIF later in this discussion, is that I'm still waiting for John's comments. He still has a couple hours left with us that he'll be doing the presentation. So I'm waiting to hear back from him, and of course I'll shoot that back to you. That is, as of this meeting, I would like to make any last minute changes, and that's what we send a workshop and Jen knows those deadlines. November 26th is the workshop date.
Yes.
Work session.
Work
Session.
For TIF.
City council.
City council, sorry.
I've requested it to be on their agenda, but
I'm gonna hand out,
this is,
what the committee had used. And since this board directed the TIF committee last month to incorporate the project into the TIF, what you see in the attachment is the result of that in the 27-page document. This is kind of the summary of the changes, and specifically the note section at the bottom is where the changes are. So other than minutia cleanup and formatting, the body of the document hasn't changed since probably early summer. The changes have been in the numbers, and then this last set between the last version that was sent out to the board and this version, really the changes are in these notes. So I just want to walk through
Yeah.
them. So the motion from the board was to incorporate funding for the West Shore Community College project, and to see whether or not that would require an extension of the TIF term. So when the committee met, we had kind of the 20-year version, the 25-year version, the 30-year version. We ended up with a recommendation here of 25 years. So adding on 5 years, those 5 years really don't do much except kind of status quo, staffing, kind of, basic projects, but no new projects. And then the savings or the additional TIF capture goes into some offsetting the costs of $750,000 in West Shore Community College funding projects. So that is one of the changes. It's a 25-year plan versus 2020. The motion talked about two aspects of the West Shore project. What the TIF committee is coming back with is a recommendation of $500,000 toward the facade enhancements that were requested, and then $250,000 for what's in the TIF document and is phrased here is a Riverwalk Plaza, which is, the description of that is basically enhancing the Riverwalk along that building to make it more friendly, usable, hopefully a catalyst for other Riverwalk activity. Both of those projects are added in the 1 to 5 year time frame because they're essentially fairly immediate projects. The other two changes that somewhat offset the cost of that is the other Riverwalk capital improvements were reduced by $100,000. The basic assumption being is that some of the things we would have done in that money will accomplish just sooner with the West Shore project. And then the facade grant program was reduced in kind of the back years of this from $30,000 a year to $20,000 a year, again, kicking in about $100,000 in savings that can go offset this. So the net of all this is, if you look at the last two columns, the last column was what was in the last version of the TIF document. So it's the 20-year where things were. And then the second to last column is what this plan and the current TIF as in the packet is. So you can kind of see how those changes. But at the bottom of it, because we're going out an additional 5 years, our total projected revenue capture is increased by 1.3 million. Although our projected deficit in that time period does also go up by about 340,000. So we didn't recoup all of the savings. If we went out to 30 years, we could have recouped all the savings. But at some point, it just becomes too far in the future to be hunting all of these things. So the deficit is slightly larger, but it's not hugely larger. But that is a challenge with this is the TIF revenue numbers are very conservative at 0.25% growth per year over 25 years. If that's all we're doing, then we're going to have to cut an awful lot in farther out years. The assumption being that if those numbers do increase, as we hope all the activity we're doing will cause, then that additional revenue will cover those projected gaps that are there right now. So I just want to give everyone that summary, because otherwise it's hard to pick out on a 20-some thousand.
Yeah.
What changed?
What percentage growth does it take to not have a deficit? I mean, if we're at 0.25% over 20 years and still have over a $2.5 million deficit.
I have not run that
Yeah.
number. And that's not the compounding, that's not saying you can do
Yeah.
that.
Okay. I mean, can a TIF plan even be approved with a deficit? I mean, is that typical? Just asking dumb questions.
I don't know.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
You're just gonna have to adjust your revenue, just cash flow.
Okay, okay.
And most of the activity is really front-loaded too, so
Yes.
it won't have the funds
Yes.
to do and what we outlined
Well,
unless we.
And that is something that in the special meeting that we didn't have happen because we didn't have a quorum, there was some conversation there, and that is a point that was raised, is that the current TIF plan does not indicate cash flow mechanisms, I'll call them, to actually do the things in the timeframes that are allotted here, whether that be bonding or other means of capital to do some of these things earlier. That needs to be ultimately part of the plan, or I don't necessarily want to say the plan as in the document, but it certainly needs to be part of the process, because we can't obviously spend money we don't have, and we won't have it until more backloaded. But those funding mechanisms also come with costs,
I was just
whether it
gonna say, that would
be
be
interest and or just other fees associated with, bond offering, so.
Can I ask a question? Because what triggered changing from 20-year to 25-year was the West Shore
Yep.
Community College project. And my recollection of the October 9 meeting was that they were going to go back to their alumni and ask for some matching funds. Did they ever get back to us at all? I mean, because wouldn't that reduce what's on here?
They have gone back, is my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
And they got more, because they were looking for more, actually, more from the DDA.
Okay.
And so they dropped it down to that $750,000, and they got some more money from their funding.
Okay, all right, so they actually came to us for more than $750,000?
Yes.
Gotcha, okay.
And they're also pursuing an MEDC grant.
Okay,
We'll see.
yeah.
So
Thank you.
this might be a moot point. Well, it's all kind.
Sure.
Okay.
So in other words, if they got that grant, it wouldn't be excluded from our plan.
It could be, yeah. It's, from what I understand from the college, it's more of a timing of when they want to start their project, and if they start the project, and then MEDC can't expend funds retroactively, so they're weighing all that out. But they are still moving forward with the MEDC requests.
So if I could just follow up with a question on that is, so then when we go back to the 20-year? Because really, that Kyle asked the question, well, why can we go to a different plan to be able to help fund the West Shore Community College project?
I think it all depends on timing.
Exactly.
So you
Because
really
it-
can't answer that
It may
question
be
right
that
now.
this will need to get approved before those questions get answered.
Sure.
Then, once it's adopted, would it make sense to go through an amendment of a plan for something like that or not? Maybe, maybe not.
Okay.
If their funding came in, quick, which I doubt with MEDC, then it could be like, okay, then, it would make more sense while we're still going through this process at a kind of a late date to make it a change and then have that be what is finally approved.
My preference would be, if the timing's right, is that we use state dollars rather than ours. That would be my preference.
For sure.
But, so, I think we need to communicate that, keep that in our mind when we discuss it with the college.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so will we get updates from them or some, I mean, in other words,
I would hope
how, okay. Should we be asking for that in some manner?
I don't think
I don't
that's a
think they're
TIF,
just-
that's not a TIF committee
Yeah, right, but
question.
I don't think
that would
they're
be.
just gonna automatically come to us. I know I got some update Thursday night, but I don't know. I wouldn't
Right.
report on what I heard, of course, but.
It seems like, Thad, you're in communication with them?
Yeah, kind of. I've also suggested that they show up at the council work session this month,
Definitely.
to be there, just more or less to see how the discussion goes on TIF, and, that might be an opportunity to get an update from them.
Mhm.
I think what Thad said is very important, is collectively, we would all, prefer that state money be used. I'm not sure for them it matters. Actually, the state money is probably more challenging, so maybe it's almost a reverse incentive of what our goal is. So I think we do need to be in the forefront of making sure we communicate that.
Yeah, and it just comes down from, again, what I understand is when they want to start. And if they're anxious to start, and they do start, then MEDC is not going to give them money. So we got to get that figured out. I also understand that, and MEDC hasn't told me this, but apparently the college ownership of the building, MEDC can't go give money to the college. And there might be, but I haven't heard that from MEDC. So, just a lot of moving parts.
I don't have a whole lot of faith in MEDC.
They told me 6 months was the process.
Okay.
That's a short process.
All right.
So-
Yeah, that would be done.
Yeah.
6 months.
My question is should we take any action today? Actually, I would make a motion that we
We do talk about it.
We have an action item.
We have an action
on
item later.
business.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Do you want to wait for that, Mary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to
yeah.
update you on John's comment, and then we had originally asked about fees and bonds. And I have a meeting set up later this month to find out alternative options, but it will cost about $50,000 in fees for the setting up of the bond. That's just what I'm saying.
Which for a $500,000 is a pretty big fee. So
Yes.
that might cause us to think, is there more we should incorporate into it to get more of these things done early, to make, kind of spread that cost over
Sure.
more things?
We're looking into that. I've got a meeting at the end of the month.
Okay, anything else on TIF? Spark, Valerie.
Actually, we're moving along, and Caitlin, I think, did a nice job, and she may want to go over the chart that's in here.
I'm really excited. Applications ended last night at midnight. We have 10 applications, and I've got some pretty solid ones in there. So I'm actually really excited about our applicants this year. Last year, they said they had about 30, but only 14 went to the group. And I actually think we have a larger number of qualified, solid applicants this year. So I'm actually really excited. We got a press release that's in works, and it will go in the News Advocate for the announcement of the finalists on National Entrepreneurship Day, which is November 19th. But we also have a live announcement on Facebook planned for, I believe, 11:30 at Jamie Catlett's on the same day. So if you don't get the newspaper, or just so we can celebrate Jamie in another way and have fun ourselves, we'll be doing that second announcement then.
And the other thing that I would say is that the business development committee was very helpful in assisting with that project. We divided the list in half of our past people that did not earn, they were all contacted, members respond, and one of our members helped Caitlin with the marketing plan, so.
I learned a
Good
lot about
community.
Facebook in the last week and a half, which is great.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you. Approval of consent agenda. Business development, do I have to go through all these, or
How do we do the consent agenda? Sorry.
There were no minutes
There were no
either.
minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure there is any.
Okay, I was gonna say, I didn't see anything, so.
I guess we just bypass it.
Okay.
Mhm.
I know the design did not meet, so.
Right.
Yes.
So, director's report. Okay.
So in addition to the sheet that you have in there, I just wanted to make a couple comments that PA 57 is due at the end of the year. So if I'm quiet, it's because I'm finishing up our annual report due on December 31st and updating the last bits of our website. But the website, for the most part, it's good for the information they want is on the website. So,
Are you pretty close on the requirements?
yes, the last thing that I have to turn in is the annual report, which is due at the end of the year. They wanted the TIF plan to be kind of connected to it, and hence there's a lot of reasons for TIF there, but for the most part, the annual report, I'm gonna be working on the larger part of it now. And then the last meeting, we discussed the CBB, the Chamber, and the DDA needed to talk about the events coordinator. So we do have a meeting set up, and we have talked about what an event coordinator means, what that position entails, and then I've been meeting with some of our committee event chairs and asking them what kind of assistance would be helpful, what could have we done better, and kind of seeing how we can incorporate that too, if we were gonna have a contract out. I also wanted to make a comment that I'm gonna be on holiday from the 31st to the 7th. So if you have any comments for the board packet, it's gonna be going out before then.
Okay. That's Caitlin. Thank you. Old business.
Can I ask
Yeah,
just a
go
quick
ahead.
question? I guess, on the marketing plan that you're working on. So is that includes all events including the events that have been done in the past by other organizations like the Chamber, right?
It's less marketing and it's more of, if we were to have a contract out for
on to old business. Action item approval of the changes for the DDA development and TIF plan for city council and work session.
Now, I guess I would make the motion that we approve the revised TIF plan and submit it to council for review.
Support.
A motion by Lynn, support by Taylor. Any comments?
Yeah, I just had a couple of things. We had a new organizational meeting last night, and Robert Goodspeed is no longer on the council. And the new council member is Jermaine, Jermaine.
Can you say that?
I can. Jermaine, and her last name is Cipcic, CIPCIC. So that's on page 3.
Awesome.
What district was that?
4.
Okay.
And then I just had a question, came on 8, I brought it up once before. I just want to make sure that the legal description and the map are the same, are they?
So I did talk to Ed,
Okay.
and he said, this is the Spicer map, so I used the Spicer description, and I went back to it. And I indicated that to John when I reached back to him, because
All right.
he wanted to see the changes.
Thanks for clarification. And on page 16, it said projects, all the different projects. I just had a question that you started to talk about a little bit, is the amount of bonds you might need and the cost of the funding. So I don't know where we need to put this in. Those are the only comments I have.
Are you saying that you're thinking that should be included in this table?
I just questioned where that was gonna be reflected as a cost for us.
Okay.
Like, maybe when you're gonna meet, we could have a summary document, but your meeting, how will that coincide with the council meeting?
Maybe it's,
Council work session?
maybe it's next week.
Okay, so you'll have that before the council meeting?
Yes. I'm assuming
Maybe.
that would be, because other fees that we have incorporated in are under the administrative fees section.
There's, I mean, you've got the fees, but you also have interest.
Yes.
And interest is probably gonna, over, 20-year or whatever the bond it would be, that's gonna dwarf the fees. So you can't just, hide that in a line item like that. But not knowing how big of a bond you want to
Yes.
do, it's really hard to forecast what those costs would be, other than that we know to accomplish what's there, we're going to need to incur something. So I don't have a good suggestion as to how to incorporate that. Going back to our earlier conversation, like, again, the TIF growth at 0.25% is very conservative. Maybe you just put in a line item that is some number, and then whatever it ends up being will constrain us based on what TIF revenue ultimately is.
Yeah, Barry talked about a little earlier that, we're gonna have to pay roughly $50,000 for bond fee, bonding council and all that. I think doesn't matter what the dollar amount is. I think it's all, the costs are gonna be the same, so we might, if that's gonna be our cost, we might as well consider front loading some other projects. But if we could narrow that down, at least for the discussion with council, that would be my preferred option.
So for the work session, I'll
Yeah.
come with a memo or list of.
Yeah, something that, so at least they know how we're gonna pay for the front load.
Yes.
And then maybe the board members take a look at what other projects we have anticipated, and if we wanna get the biggest bang for our buck for the bonding, what projects we wanna move forward and not go and get done.
Hopefully that would help us with our revenue.
Any other comments? We have a motion and a second on the floor. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Still under old business, action item approval for budget amendment for January 8th board planning meeting.
We don't currently have anything under that budget line item. Last year we spent about 2,200. I'm asking for the consultant that we, MSU Extension, they're saying about 750. I'm also looking for at least 200 in catering, which is about what they spent last year for lunches.
So the total dollars you're asking.
$1,000 for admin and catering. It's about 2,500.
Is that gonna be, are you getting that from another line item, or are you looking at fund balance?
No, it's an actual, it's an actual account, we just don't have anything budgeted for it, we have zeros.
Right,
So
but where is it
expense
coming
from
from?
somewhere.
Where the
Keeping
money's coming
budget
from.
balanced. Either it comes from fund balance or it has to come out of some other
Fund
line.
balance.
Okay.
Balance, yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
Is that a motion?
Exactly. You read my mind.
Motion by Taylor.
Second.
Second by Bergstrom. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you.
Generally, a change to the budget should be a roll call vote.
Do we want to do roll call?
I would recommend that.
All right,
Perfect.
so I rescind all that. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Kelly?
Barry Lynn,
Yes.
Hiram Mosher,
Yes.
Ed Taylor,
Yes.
Joey Walter,
Yes.
Tamara Duhon, Econia, yes. And Benny Bergstrom.
Yes.
Thank you, Kelly. My mistake. Old business, action item C, approval of 2020 meeting minutes, including adjusted date for November 2020 due to national holiday. Let's,
So in our bylaws, it says that we meet the second Wednesday of every month, but next November, our meeting falls on Veterans Day and City Hall isn't open
next November, okay.
next November.
Gotcha.
So they're asking to put those dates on the calendar. I just want to run that date by you, that
Is there a reason you're recommending moving it to Friday than the following Wednesday?
other than we've done Friday meetings before, I think we're flexible.
Yes.
Right. My preference would be to move it to the following Wednesday.
I'm certain that.
Keep the date just a week. So I'll make a motion to approve the meeting dates for 2020 as presented with the change of the November meeting being Wednesday, November 18th.
Support.
So, his motion and support from Taylor, motion by Lynn. Any other discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Third item, fourth item, discussion, DDA director goals and responsibilities. I requested that we put that, just because I hadn't seen it in, so there doesn't need to be any discussion unless anybody would like to. But we do have your review, 6 month review coming up. So, new business, discussion, Manistee County Planning Department requesting DDA feedback from housing plan for direction and implementation.
I apologize, but who will be doing the document for her performance review? And is there a committee that's going to be set up for that? Because, are you kind of following me? It's easy to say we're going to do it in December, but there's not a written process in place or a form.
Okay. What have we done in the past?
I think the one, I had a committee and that was assigned to do it. I know I was on the committee and we brought forth the document and approved the document so that we could then utilize it to do her review. So especially because it's come up as role and responsibilities, I don't think we want to wait.
Then, so your proposal, some committee comes up with a document, and all the board members fill out the
We would
document.
see it. Yeah, we would actually get an opportunity in November to see the document, and then we would ask. The last time, we actually had the person do a self-appraisal too, so they had to submit that to the board first. So we had a process in place, in other words, that was reviewed first with the board, then the documents were distributed, and with the idea that we'd come back in December. So now would be certainly the timing on that.
Would you be willing to distribute that document again?
It would have to be updated because it was very specific to the roles and responsibilities that were required for the position.
Okay.
And if someone else would work with me on it, I would be happy to pull together another document. But I would like someone else to assist, just so that it's not just me making those kinds of
I'd be
recommendations.
happy to work with you on it.
Thanks. I apologize for backtracking.
No, that's,
And, well, on these goals and responsibilities, is that what she was tasked with?
Yes.
Okay, so then the evaluation would be based on the task that she was assigned.
Absolutely, we would also look at the job description to see if there's any things that weren't specifically on there that are obviously important to her role in the position. Okay,
good.
thank you.
Mhm.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. Planning, Manistee County Planning Department.
They asked to come and talk to us today. They're looking at implementing some ideas and some projects for the housing plan, and they wanted to include our ideas, our intentions for upper level housing that's discussed. And since the DDA is part of that, they wanted our feedback and comments on it. They are not here to present today, so their
I would
recommendations.
suggest we just put them on the agenda for next week.
Yes.
Okay. Did they say they were going to be here?
Yes, they did.
Okay. Who is that?
Rob Carson and Mike, or I want to say Leslie.
Yeah.
I know Rob is really, really sad.
Okay. All right, item B, action item, approval for the City of Manistee and Manistee DDA Master Agreement. What do I do with this?
So that is
I asked for your help.
That's our agreement with the city.
Well, maybe I'll
Yeah.
start off with
Yes.
some of the history. So
Yeah.
the TIF committee in its deliberations has had over the last couple of years, a couple meetings that were joint TIF committee with city staff and some city council members as well. And that process led to about 3 months ago, the last meeting that was joint. On the city side was Jeff McCula, and the group felt that to move this forward, we needed to get something on paper. Everything was just being verbal and not really going anywhere. So last week, a discussion was held, comments at the meeting that didn't happen, that basically said, well, we're kind of waiting for that initial draft to come back. And Caitlin, or Thad said, well, when you get to the point that you need it, let me know and I'll make sure it happens. And Caitlin said, now's the point. So now the following week, we have, a draft document. This has not been seen by the TIF committee yet, who kind of requested it, but that's how we got here. Now, this is an important piece, ultimately, in any city council approval of our TIF, because the topics that are discussed here go back a decade or more in disagreements between the DDA and city staff and city council. So, this is an important piece of the whole puzzle that is our TIF renewal. Having said all that, some of my thoughts on this is, I think this is a good initial framework. I think there are some, good things to work with. But I think it, as of right now, since it's only been drafted by city, it lacks our kind of corresponding views into the joint agreement.
When could the TIF committee meet to review this and provide a recommendation?
Well, two of us are here.
Yeah.
Karen is the harder one
To get.
to get. Well, actually,
I'm not on
you're
the
not at
documents.
T in Karen. Well, I will, the TIF committee has been the one that's done it. That doesn't necessarily mean that the TIF committee needs to be the one that takes this
Yeah.
forward.
I was suggesting it for continuity because it is
Yes.
something that
Yes.
it's gonna be
Yes.
a major component of the TIF plan.
Yep, yep.
So I just thought, as long as you've had those discussions, it seems unwise to insert another group of people.
That is
Well, it's
fine.
true, except that the design committee, a lot of the expenses that are incorporated in this come from the design committee, from my observations.
I'm on that, I'm as chair, so I'm on the TIF committee, so I think that's, but again, I would agree that I think that makes, that Tad's recommendation
Sure.
is the most logical. I also think that there are other, groups that could be pulled together that could also effectively work on this, but.
Sure.
Does this need to happen before the city reviews a TIF on the 26th?
I would suggest if we could, it would be helpful. Because I don't think the TIF plan is gonna be approved without this being a part of it.
I would agree with that.
So,
So-
did you need that recommendation in form of a motion?
Well, let me ask a follow-up question. My assumption would be if this were sent to the TIF committee to kind of finish a negotiation, it would still need to come back to this board for approval. Are you suggesting that we plan a special meeting before the city council work session so that it is more wrapped up?
If
as
it's
a-
necessary, yeah.
Because I would be uncomfortable from the committee, that document going directly to
Sure.
city council without this board's input in it, so.
Yeah, and
but-
I think it's all gonna come down to is if you can get the committee together to
Right,
meet.
right,
And
right.
then have something to show the board in the special.
Mhm.
And if we did that, we might also consider the bonding information that we get, that it is bringing that forward at the same time.
I just had a couple of comments. On the front page, it said the sunset dissolved on June 30th, 2019. I don't think that's correct.
It's the first time I've seen that date, so I don't know
I've
where it
always
came
heard
from.
it be early next year.
Yeah.
So that's just something that we might want to confirm. And then on the second page, I saw one of the suggestions is that, or offers the city is willing to provide accounting books and record services. And I know that the city's made that offer before. I don't know, something to think about.
When was this drafted?
The first time I saw it was yesterday.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So-
and I guess I'll just make a comment that we did bid that process the last time, and we would be willing to do that again, but the last time the city fees were higher than.
I don't recall, I just know that the offer was
Significantly.
there. Yeah. Those are my comments.
So I don't think we need a motion for this, but it seems like we have a plan to move
Well,
forward.
it's an action item, so
Okay.
I will move that the draft master agreement be referred back to the TIF committee for further discussion with the city.
Okay.
I'll support that.
Okay, motion by Taylor, support by Lynn.
I just have a comment that I think it should say that we would bring it back to a special meeting prior to the council meeting for our approval.
And I'll amend it that we have a special meeting, but I'll just condition it that if it's appropriate, if we have.
If
an
possible,
document.
I'll
yeah.
support that.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We are down to board member comments.
I have one comment. I'm glad to see we're keeping it just about an hour. So good work.
Oh, that was your comment?
That was my comment. I'm just happy that we're down to 1 hour meetings. If we could make that as a goal.
Very nice.
Anybody else?
I've got a comment too. This is partly in having time to recollect on the actions of our last meeting. Is I'm surprised, even though I supported the actions that I'm going to be surprised about, that as a board, we in 1 hour can have a discussion and vote to basically give away $500,000, when at the same time we have programs for small businesses that require substantial documentation, substantial work, process that can take multiple months for a small business to get, whether it be a grant for a facade grant program of $5,000 or a loan for our loan program of $5,000. It concerns me that, it just kind of in the bigger political spectrum, that the, kind of the 1% of Manistee County can kind of go through processes and, get substantial funding for projects. But the bread and butter of our district, the small businesses, we make them jump through hoops. Now, you could argue that both of those, that the fault lies on either side of that, but it's just an observation I had, and I just felt uncomfortable in thinking about that after our last meeting.
Well, maybe we need to refine our process for the smaller businesses. I don't have a problem with that.
Again, I
Can
said
we
it
also
could
say-
be either way.
I guess my comment would also be that a $500,000 plus, which is substantially more than that process, that I left town like 3 days before, and I wasn't aware that we were even going to be entertaining a facade grant with the college. So when I came back and read the minutes, I was surprised. And if you think about it, that's a significant amount of funding. And what I've noticed from city council meetings is that when that type of major decision's made, they actually have 2 readings of the resolution, for example, before they approve it. And so it just, as the treasurer, I was totally surprised. Plus, we've had a number of, it's been difficult for us to work through our TIF plan anyway, and to be in the final stages making major changes, which is neither here nor there, but rather our process for approvals and dollar amounts of that nature, I think, should at least come to this board twice. And we can look at all, and maybe that's a process that we should look at too. Anything over a certain dollar amount should at least have some type of review by another committee. And I do think that, didn't you, was there a meeting prior to their presentation?
The executive committee was aware of this, so, and they met just a few days before.
Okay.
The only time the city requires 2 readings is on an ordinance.
Do they normally look at dollar amounts that significant and approve it in one meeting?
We have, yeah,
Okay.
we have a purchasing policy and how we handle, the requirements. So if we're gonna expend, as an example, next meeting, we're gonna have, give council the opportunity to spend $300,000 or $400,000 on a road project. And so they'll take action at that meeting.
Is that in the budget though?
Yes.
Okay. This would not have been a budgeted item, and it wouldn't have been included in the.
No, the thing was included as part of the TIF plan, which is not part of the current budget. That is where I'm going.
Go ahead.
I just, I'm just asking that major things, come forward, and that executive meeting is like a day before this meeting typically, so that's why I wasn't aware. I just read the minutes and was like, wow, that was a significant change.
I guess, my comment.
Not that I am
No,
upset
yeah.
with the change,
No, I get it.
rather the process.
My comment for all of that is, some of these things we have looked at many times, and I saw actions at last month's meeting as just a way to get us to the next step. And, I mean, we've talked about the economic development funding for the chamber for as long as I've been on the board, which is not a year, but a long, long time. So we didn't necessarily spend all the money that was discussed at the, it was just that we brought it to the next level to discuss it. And I feel like we got past a couple of hurdles. So there's just another way to look at it. But I think part of the argument is that we do move, not argument, but some of the complaints that I'm hearing is that we do move extremely slow. And so I felt like last month we actually got past some things to get it to the next level of discussion. And
Yeah. And that's, that's been one of my frustrations, is that it seems like we overanalyze and we almost become paralyzed by it. And so I was, I think moving forward, that's gotta be one of our objectives, is to be able to accommodate these requests in a very timely fashion. And Barry brings up a good point. I mean, if we're making, one of our downtown businesses go through stuff for 6 or 8 or 9 months, that, shame on us. We've got to change our process.
Well, I think the incident that he's referring to, the person has applied, has not provided a proper
Right.
documentation, and that's the reason, so that's, I don't think it's the process.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I would hope that would be one of our goals, is to get the wheels turning.
yeah, I think to keep in mind that we've been allowed to use this money and to remain somewhat nimble and make decisions. Process is a part of it, but sometimes, when you only meet once a month, you gotta be able to just make some decisions too.
Yeah, I think it's critical because, I look at the 2 major projects that are underway right now, and, the Flicks building and making that look more like our downtown, and get some good activity there, and then on the other end, with the DDA throwing the cleaners into the mix. I think those are really, really positive steps, not only for the board, but for the entire community, and we have our bookend kind of corners going.
And
So
please
that's
don't
why-
misunderstand, I'm not at all, I'm very delighted with the projects.
Right.
It's not that concerned, but just, I'm surprised. Mostly, obviously, we were been talking about the cleaners, but the college project was a surprise to me.
I'm glad you're surprised.
In a positive way,
Yeah,
right?
Anything else from the board public? Mayor, congratulations. Any comments?
I love what I'm hearing.
What was that?
Oh, well, getting your calendars of the graduation for Rising Tide will be, as far as MEDC and Leo is about, and everybody else, December 18th at 10:30. Still trying to get the details on how much, of a party they want to throw and what they want to do and which VIP are they inviting and what they're doing, but if you could get it on your calendars in advance, it would be really nice.
What's that date again?
At 10. What?
Date again?
December 18th.
At 10:30 at the Ramsdale.
At the Ramsdale.
AM or PM?
AM. I mean, it could be PM, but you have.
That's a party, 10:30 AM? All right, got it.
Get your reservations in, she's
Yeah.
on vacation.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.